Hey folks, welcome back. Well, the new year is upon us once again, which is kind of a shame because nobody likes you when you're 2023. You know what I'm saying? I guess I make music references in my top 10 episodes from now on. I guess that's a thing. No idea what the hell I'm going to do for 2024, but at least I've got a full year to think about it, right? 2022, 2022 was actually a pretty good year. I saw some friends I haven't seen in years, went to the French part of Canada, climbed a mountain, and learned that Calgary is actually a real place and not just some psyop made by people on the internet to sell Trudeau bumper stickers. And as always, video games were had. I mean, like, what else am I going to do? Seize the day? Make money? What am I, some sort of go-getter? Get the fuck out of here. Video games is more important, and it's with that mentality that I bring you yet another top 10 episode counting down all the best games I played this year. I replayed Mario Odyssey as I am legally required to do at least once per year, and I also replayed Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 2. Absolute masterpieces. Played a whole lot more of Into the Breach. They actually updated it this year and added a bunch more mech squads, so that's pretty sick. Pokemon Legends Arceus. Let's err on the side of caution here and just say, didn't make it in the top 10. Not even close. But before we actually get into the top 10, I want to do a little honorable mentions segment. Games that didn't quite crack the top 10, but I think are worth giving a little bit of love, so here we go. Demon's Souls PS5, it's a Souls game, so obviously it's a lot of fun. I think they could have worked out a lot of the outdated gameplay mechanics. I know people are super purists for this game, so I kind of get why they didn't, but like, how are you not going to let me slide down ladders? Who would that have upset? Mega Man 11 was fun. It didn't quite live up to the quality of the other Mega Man games, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. Space Lines from the Far Out is a fun little multiplayer game where you run an intergalactic public transit company. It's very fast-paced and hectic and quite a lot of fun. If you're a fan of Overcooked, I would recommend this game, plus all the different types of aliens are super cute. And finally, the one that I am least excited to say is not on the top 10, Sonic Frontiers. Look, this game is good, okay? I had a lot of fun playing Sonic Frontiers, and it's arguably the best 3D Sonic game in years, perhaps of all time. But I just couldn't justify putting it in the top 10. Maybe if this was a top 11 games of 2022, I could, but it had too many issues that really need to be ironed out. I'll talk at length about this game sometime in the near future, but honestly, if Sonic Team can manage to work out the bugs and draw distance issues, make the controls a little tighter, fix the UI, work out the classic 3D Sonic bullshit, and make the world a little bit more interesting, Sonic Frontiers 2 could be a straight-up masterpiece. Well, with all of that out of the way, let's get into that top 10, baby. As always, I feel it important to point out that this isn't your granddaddy's top 10. This is an Idiot Ben top 10, where things are very slightly different. Rather than going through the top 10 games that were released in 2022, I prefer to go through the games that I played for the first time in 2022, some of which were released in 2022, and others were released a long time ago. So without further ado, once again I give you Idiot Ben's top 10 games of 2022. Crash Bandicoot is a series that is beloved by many, myself included. The original trilogy on the PlayStation, mostly the first two, are absolute classics and blueprints for how to make a good 3D platformer. The third one is good, just not as good as the first two. I mean, like, be honest with yourself. Remember the plane levels? You remember the plane levels. Nobody likes the plane levels. After the series was revitalized in 2017 with the release of Crash N. Sane Trilogy, it seemed like it was only a matter of time before Crash had an all-new adventure. And just such a thing happened with Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. I got this game to play during a little weekend getaway vacation, and man, it's not a perfect return to form for the old PS1 classics, but it's pretty damn close, I gotta say. The platforming is on point, the controls are tight, the challenge is f***ed. It really feels like a love letter to Crash's Renaissance era. Plus lots of new stuff was added, like the quantum masks that let you do stuff like reverse gravity, fly between large gaps, slow down time. The platform one is kind of lame, honestly. And there's also levels where you play as Tawna, and she looks like this now. Like, I mean, I'm not going to defend her original design, but just make a new character. She doesn't, what the f*** is this? Also, there's levels where you play as Dingodile, and they're actually fun, too. Like, who saw that coming? Overall, if you're looking for something exactly like the original trilogy, this might not be it, but if you're a Bandicoot fan, or dare I say, a Fandicoot, give Crash 4 a chance. I promise it's a lot of fun. Bugsnax is kind of a weird game, honestly. It's made by the Octodad people, and you play as a private investigator looking for a scientist who has gone missing on a remote island away from civilization. That's the plot of Bugsnax? Bugsnax is essentially a creature collection adventure game where you are tasked with finding and cataloging a race of creatures called Bugsnax, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, are hybrids between insects and snack foods. Some of my favorites include Scorpanio, a mix between a scorpion and a jalapeno, Scoopy Banoopy, who's a banana split mixed with a water bug. Cinnasnail is a snail, but he's also a cinnamon bun. You got the Weenie Worm, who's a hot dog, and you got the Shy Weenie Worm, who's a Chicago hot dog, and he hates ketchup because Chicago hot dogs famously don't have ketchup. Like, come on, man, that's so cute. And of course, my favorite, Sandopede, who is always followed by several sub-Sandopedes, and they make this noise. And on top of that, you got a stellar cast of characters who are all these Muppet-looking creatures called Grumpuses who like to eat Bugsnax because it transforms their limbs. I don't know why you'd want that, but whatever. There's Filbo, Wiggle, Wambus, the farmer and his wife, Triffle-Lotta-Bug. You've got Chandlo and his boyfriend Snorpy, who invented the launch pad used in Bugsnax Episode 3, Beffica Strikes Back. Anyone who gets what I was referencing there is my eternal homie for life. Bugsnax is a very fun and very creative game. It's fun to figure out how to capture each of the different creatures. The large-scale boss fight segments are super exciting, and the characters are also silly and memorable. Plus, it has a song by probably my favorite British/Japanese J-pop inspired electronic pop band, Kiro Kiro Bonito, and that alone would have been enough to pull me in. What more need I say about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge? I mean, I made a whole ass episode about it, for gosh sake. I am still going to talk about it, though, because, this wouldn't be very interesting if I didn't. Now, would it? Give your head a shake. Figure it out! The absolute banger of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat-em-up, Shredder's Revenge filled the TMNT beat-em-up shaped hole in the industry that I think a lot of people didn't even realize was there. And god damn is this game ever fun, man. I first discovered this game by playing it on my brother's Xbox Series X during my aforementioned trip to Calgary, and I immediately knew it would be on my top 10 list this year. It's so fast-paced, colorful, alive. Each character has their own playstyle that makes it a different experience to try out each one. The controls are complicated enough to allow for strategy, but simple enough to make pulling off combos relatively easy to pick up. But what really stands out about this game is the atmosphere and the visuals. This game was made by Turtle fans for Turtle fans. Each of their characters show off their personality. The levels feel like they were taken straight out of the 80s cartoon. It just rules, man. Casey gets a New York Knicks uniform during his Air special. Like, hell yeah, bro. If I was from New York and had more than a passive interest in basketball, I would be marginally more excited about that. And on top of that, the music rules. Really, if you want a fun multiplayer game that gets to be stupid, fast-paced fun, give Shredder's Revenge a try. I cannot recommend it enough. And then watch my episode about it. It's a good game. It's not just that, you know. I mean, that doesn't hurt. Yet another game I experienced for the first time during my trip to Calgary. I did other things in Calgary, too. I didn't just sit there on vacation and play video games the whole time. I knew you were going to comment. Bayonetta is one of the most buck-wild video games I have ever played in my entire life. Bayonetta follows, Bayonetta, a witch who has been resurrected to save the world from evil Catholic angels. Along the way, she meets Luca, a bumbling idiot who Bayonetta develops a fondness for, a little girl named Cereza, who is very important to the story, but I'd rather not spoil it, and of course Jean, somewhat of a Vegeta to Bayonetta's Goku, if you catch my drift. Like I said, the story is insane, but the real cherry on top here is the gameplay. Bayonetta is an insane, fast-paced hack-and-slash game along the lines of Devil May Cry. The difference being that Bayonetta builds up combos so that she can unleash super powerful attacks that more often than not involve her summoning monsters through her clothes, meaning that she pretty much has to get naked to do so. Now, you might think that that sounds like a shameless excuse to have a bunch of naked girls. And it kind of is, but at the very least, Bayonetta is portrayed as such a confident, powerful character that it sort of overshadows the obvious horny aspect of the game. I've come around on hack and slashes in recent years. I used to not be a huge fan, but I've really learned to enjoy the fast-paced, button-mashing gameplay, and this game is certainly no exception. It's so much fun to try and juggle enemies for as long as possible, and Bayonetta has so many fun combos that are a blast to build up to. Plus, it has a huge variety of enemies that work differently and allow the gameplay to have some sort of variety without shaking it up to the point of being confusing. It's the kind of game you might have to play through a couple of times. You get graded on your performance at the end of each level, and the better you do, the more abilities and weapons and stuff you can unlock, so it encourages you to try again since you're probably not going to do super well the first time around. I mean, I certainly had my fair share of mediocre performances, let me tell you. Overall, if you're a fan of hack and slashes and or naked women with British accents, you'll definitely have a good time with Bayonetta. I know I did. For years and years, people are always coming at me and telling me some shit like, "Oh, Ben, you gotta play Celeste. Ben, Celeste is the best video game ever made. Oh, Ben, you gotta collect all the strawberries." So I put it on my backlog. Okay, fine, yes, I'll play Celeste eventually. Just fucking shut up about it already. I gotta be honest, it's kind of difficult to convince me of the quality of a pixel art 2D platformer game because, there's no shortage of those. However, I can honestly say that everyone was right about Celeste. This game isn't just your average 2D platformer. Celeste is a goddamn masterpiece with incredible writing, challenging yet fair gameplay, beautiful environments, and unbelievable music. Celeste tells the story of Madeline, a young woman who has dedicated to climb Mount Celeste, an actual mountain located on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. Fuck yeah, Arthur, add it to the list! It's not immediately evident why Madeline is climbing the mountain, but as the game goes along, we learn that she's doing it as a sort of attempt to overcome her issues with anxiety, depression, and self-consciousness. Her mental health issues manifest in the form of Badalin, an evil form of herself that stops at nothing to cause discord and make Madeline feel like she should just give up. Now, here's the thing. I didn't realize that Celeste was real like that. I didn't know they were on some real shit, you know? I like to keep things fun here on Idiot Ben, but if I can be perfectly candid with you, I have also struggled with crippling clinical anxiety my entire life. Even as a kid, I can remember constantly second-guessing myself, being scared of uncertain social situations, worrying about how everyone perceived me, and worst of all, always expecting the worst-case scenario in pretty much every situation I found myself in. However, as I've gotten older and come to terms with my anxiety disorder and learned to accept it as part of myself, I've become a lot healthier mentally. And I think that's the real success of Celeste. It uses literal visuals and themes to depict a story about a girl who learns to accept herself for who she is, which is all you can really do with mental illness. You can't cure it in the traditional sense, but you can learn to deal with it. I also love the surrounding cast of characters, particularly Theo, another climber who becomes Madeline's closest ally during her ascent. I particularly like the part where Theo talks Madeline through a panic attack by telling her to envision a feather moving up and down. I don't think I've ever related so much to something in a video game. And look, I'm not trying to turn this into some pity party. Oh, everyone feel bad for Ben because he worries about everything. In my experience, a lot of the time, games with important messages and symbolic storytelling tend to do so at the expense of good gameplay. Even Silent Hill 2, it's one of the greatest games of all time, full stop, but the gameplay is pretty whatever. Celeste, on the other hand, nails it in every aspect. It's non-stop, fast-paced platforming from start to finish. And it's so fucking hard, but it's so fair. You know? It's almost annoying in the sense that it'll make you so mad because you just keep fucking dying. But at the same time, it's such a well-designed game that you don't even have anyone to direct your anger toward. And on top of all that, the music is just just listen. If you haven't played Celeste, just do yourself a favor, it's so good. Plus, if you suck at video games, you can just turn on invincibility and infinite air dashes and you're good to go. Nice try, Anxiety, but I can simply jump through the spikes. If I had any criticism of Celeste, it would be the wind. You know the parts where the wind, pushes you in a certain direction? Could have left that out entirely. In my last year's top 10 episode, I put Final Fantasy VII as my second favorite game of the year. And I obviously still stand by that. Final Fantasy VII is, in my opinion, the best game in the series. Oh, Ben, you better be careful. Better be careful with those piping hot takes. You might burn yourself, you fucking moron. And coming in at number 5 this year is the brilliantly titled Final Fantasy VII Remake. You know, this is somewhat of a controversial game in a lot of ways. The gameplay is so drastically different from the original. It calls itself Final Fantasy VII Remake when it is, in fact, only the first 10 hours of the original 60-hour game. Also, people who play video games in general tend to be whiny assholes. They always want their favorite game to be remade, but then the remake comes out and they're like, no, I wanted a different remake than this. Like, bro, just go play the original. It still exists. But anyway, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 of 12 is an absolute blast. Yet again, I already did an episode on this game this year, so go watch that right now, or my feelings might just get hurt. I gotta be honest that I was a little hesitant to play this game when it first came out. I've been a big fan of Final Fantasy for really as long as I can remember. But I was always sort of put off by the direction that the series went in after Final Fantasy XII. I've just never been a huge fan of hack and slashes, and I've always had a fondness for turn-based combat, especially Final Fantasy's trademark active time battle combat system. However, Final Fantasy VII Remake is the game that converted me on hack and slashes. The combat in this game is so fast-paced, flashy, fun, well-rounded. The combat is simple enough to keep the pace going at a good speed while also making it worthwhile to switch characters because each one offers a unique experience. Cloud is fun for heavy-duty hack and slashing, Tifa offers a more combo-focused beat-em-up style of combat, Barret is great for keeping your distance and charging up super powerful ranged attacks, and Aerith is a very fun support character while also being useful for offensive magic. Final Fantasy VII Remake is really the perfect kind of remake in my opinion because it diverts from the source material just enough to be a wholly unique experience in itself without being essentially an upscaled version of the original. Would it have been cool to see a remake that borrowed more from the gameplay of the original? Sure. But I think the strength of Final Fantasy VII Remake is the fact that it's a super fun game without serving as a complete replacement for the original. Again, you know, I already made an episode about this, so I don't want to drone on too much, but in a nutshell, Final Fantasy VII Remake, good. I would recommend. And I can't wait for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Retribution, or whatever the Man, I love Resident Evil. Did you know that? Have I ever mentioned that before? But I think I really realized something about myself this year, and that's that I love zombies. No matter how cliched zombies are, no matter how oversaturated they get in popular culture, you put a new zombie movie on Netflix and I'm all over that shit. Hashtag Alive, it's a Korean movie about a guy stuck in his apartment during a zombie apocalypse. Really good, trust me. I know it has the word hashtag in the title, but it's a good movie. Watch it, it's on Netflix. But yeah, I'm a sucker for zombies. And that sentence would have been a lot funnier if I was talking about vampires. Get to the point already! Dead Rising is Capcom's other zombie game. I did an episode on it very recently, so you all know my opinions, but I'm going to talk about it even more now because fuck you, I make the decisions. Dead Rising is one of the most flat-out fun video games I have ever played. It's just non-stop from start to finish, nonsensical zombie killing fun. It's a dream for zombie fans because it's one of the few zombie games that really focuses heavily on killing zombies and rewarding the player for doing so. I mean, hell, you have a live play-by-play counter of all the zombies you've killed in the corner of the screen at all times. It's really insane to look back on this game and think about how big of a deal it must have been when it came out. It was a perfect launch title for the 360 because it was really a true next-gen experience. The gameplay is more free than open than any game ever before, the graphics are amazing, and even by today's standards, the sheer amount of zombies this game manages to render on screen at once is bananas. Like, I mean, Dead Rising is out here in 2006 with this many zombies on screen, meanwhile Sonic Frontiers can't spawn a floating platform until you're 2 feet away from it. Shameful. But in the end, what I'm really trying to get at is that Dead Rising is an awesome game. Even 16 years later, it holds up arguably as good as it did when it came out. If killing hordes of zombies with katanas, chainsaws, shopping carts, really anything you can think of that could possibly be a weapon sounds fun to you, please play Dead Rising. This game fucking rules. And if that doesn't sound fun to you, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Alright folks, get ready, because we're getting into some real shit. All those other games, forget about them, because now we're talking about some monumental games. I'm talking about games of all time here, folks. Don't actually forget about all those other games, though. They're all really good. Finally, after years and years and years on my backlog, I finally hunkered down and played all the way through Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Released in 1996, objectively the best year of all time for gaming and also for people being born, Mario RPG is really a truly one-of-a-kind video game. Looking back on it, I think a lot of people don't realize how monumental this really was at the time. Two massive icons in video games, Nintendo and Squaresoft, in their prime, coming together to create one of the most beloved JRPGs, one of the most beloved video games of all time. And now that I've played it, I can honestly say that the hype for this game is absolutely deserved. Super Mario RPG is one of the most innovative, fun, rewarding old school RPGs I've ever played. It has that aura of simplicity that a lot of people love about Mario RPGs like Paper Mario and the Mario and Luigi series. You don't have to be a seasoned Final Fantasy player to really enjoy this game. But at the same time, the combat is so nuanced and fun. Every ability has a special button queue that makes them deal more damage, and each character has their own unique strengths that make them worth using. Mario is your all-rounder, Bowser is the tanky heavy hitter, Mallow has a solid arsenal of spells, Peach is your support character, and Geno has the offensive spells, baby. The world is so fleshed out and the characters are so memorable and fun. You got the Axum Rangers, Booster, Frog Fuchsius, and I genuinely laughed several times over the course of this game. The dialogue is so funny and the sense of humor this game has is so great. I love the way that Mario elaborately charades everything rather than talking. I love how Bowser reluctantly joins the gang and continues to act like a stubborn dickhead the whole time. And the cherry on top, so to speak, the soundtrack in this game is unbelievable. Yoko Shimomura's resume speaks for itself, but she really put together some amazing stuff in this game. In case you were wondering why I decided to grow my hair out, it was actually so that I could headbang to the Super Mario RPG soundtrack. All in all, if you haven't played Super Mario RPG, do yourself a favor, man. It really is a tremendous game, and you honestly don't even need to be a huge fan of JRPGs, or even RPGs in general, to get a lot out of it, in my opinion. Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars gets 7 stars out of 7. I love Kirby. I mean, like, duh, fucking newsflash, of course I love Kirby. I have a beating heart and eyes that function properly. I've always loved Kirby. Ever since he first entered my life through Kirby Nightmare and Dreamland on the Game Boy Advance, I've been a huge fan of his work. But I feel like Kirby has been kind of floundering for the past few years. Like, I mean, everything he's been in have been at least decent, but I feel like no matter what crazy gimmick they tried to throw it in to change up the gameplay, Kirby still kind of flew under the radar. Kirby Star Allies came out, and the general response was, if this pink son of a bitch doesn't do something interesting soon, I'm gonna lose my mind. But then, finally, 30 years after Kirby first blessed us with his presence, something monumental happened. Kirby's first fully 3D platforming experience was released, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and it was fucking awesome. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is an absolute banger. Kirby works just as well in 3D as he did in 2D. Each world has its own theme, but it also slowly progresses and builds toward the boss as the levels go on. World 1 is a pretty standard grass plains type world, but it switches into a mall in the last level to build to the battle with Gorimondo outside the mall. World 2 is a beach world at the beginning, but it progressively transitions into a sort of water treatment plant type area that ends in a battle against the giant tropic woods. The third world is a theme park, and don't even get me started on the winter world. Oh my God, this game is so beautiful, folks. It's amazing how well the post-apocalyptic theme works in this game. Only Kirby could take a concept as dark as the inevitable extinction of human civilization and turn it into a fun, colorful Kirby world. Mouthful mode is so much fun, it allows for the main part of the level to take a break so you can solve a special puzzle that requires you to think differently. The boss fights and combat are so fleshed out. Kirby has more moves than ever before. Well, mostly just a dodge, but it's still cool. The old abilities are back, but they work in such different and cool ways. The spike ability, which used to just like, you sat there. Now you can dash midair and enemies get stuck to your quills and you can launch them towards stuff. The upgraded sleep ability actually heals you, marking the first time in Kirby history that the sleep ability is actually useful. And just like I mentioned in my Kirby 64 episode, a ton of little things from Forgotten Land are taken directly from 64. Stone Needle from 64 is an entire new ability called Drill. The Volcano Fire and Clutter Needle are taken directly from 64. And as if all of that wasn't enough to convince you to play this game, Waddle Dee Town. Just in general. There's a band that plays music for you, there's a cafe minigame, the Waddle Dees wave back at you when you wave at them. The post office is called Waddle Dee Liveries. Like, come on, man! I'm sure you can tell, but I absolutely love this game, and I can't wait for future 3D Kirby adventures. If you haven't played it, just do yourself a favor. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. How are you gonna let Kirby down? Look at him! I mean, it's gotta be Elden Ring, right? I'm gonna be honest with you, when I first heard that Elden Ring was gonna be open world Dark Souls, I was kinda like, why does every game have to be open world? Look, I love a good open world games, but open world games don't like me too much. You see, I have a very obscure and debilitating mental illness called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It makes me not able to read books because video games is more fun. But jokes aside, it also makes me have a sort of limited time period in which I can get super engrossed in a game. And the thing about open world games is I get super into a game for like 2 weeks, and then by the point where the egg timer in my brain has run out, I've spent the entire time doing side quests. I have genuinely never once in my entire life beaten an open world game. And because of that, I'm very hesitant to spend money on an open world game because I know I'm not going to finish it. And on top of all that, I was honestly kind of skeptical as to how well the Dark Souls style could work in an open world. Open world games require a lot of exploration and backtracking, and like, who in their right mind would want to navigate a huge open world full of this bullshit? I was worried, you know? Like, what is From Software going to do to make an open world Souls style game work? Well, the answer is very simple. Horse. The addition of the horse in the game is such a godsend. It makes traversing this massive, and trust me, when I say massive, I mean massive. It makes traversing the massive world fast-paced and fun. It encourages exploration, which is good because there is a lot of shit to see in this world. Elden Ring has one of the most fleshed out, hell, perhaps the most fleshed out open world I have ever seen in any video game. You can't walk 5 minutes without tripping into some huge elaborate new area with different types of enemies, new environments, tons of side quests and special items to find. But the great thing about Elden Ring is that it never dwells on it. No matter how much effort the developers put into this game, the focus is always put on progressing forward. You're never made to stand there and be like, wow, they worked really hard on that. It's amazing how much small changes to the gameplay can completely change the experience from previous Souls games. Jumping was added in Elden Ring, and with it came new ways to explore and also jumping attacks that deal more damage but aren't as easy to control. Horseback combat is actually quite fleshed out and allows for an alternate way of combating certain bosses like the Tree Sentinels. I hate these fucking guys. And also, small things are added to the classic Souls-style combat to fit the massive scale of the game. The guard counter allows you to swing back with a powerful attack after blocking, which is great for disposing of weaker enemies, and it keeps the pace of the game from slogging. Every enemy's poise can be broken over time, allowing you to pull off a critical hit if you're fast enough, and it even works on the few of the bosses, too. Speaking of which, the bosses. Holy shit, man. Souls games are always known for their bosses, but Elden Ring takes every previous game in the series and kicks their asses into orbit. Margit, the Fell Omen, this guy is the first boss, and he's this hard. Godric the Grafted, like, look at how fucking cool this guy is. He's got a dragon head for an arm. Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, fuck this bitch. I fought her like 15 times with summons, and she kicked my ass every time. I didn't even feel triumphant when I beat her. I just felt slightly less broken than I was before. The Godskin Duo, I mean, look at this silly bouncy guy. And that's not even scraping the surface of the surface, man. This is how many bosses there are in Elden Ring. Like, look at that. You can't even read that. Honestly, I feel like an asshole sitting here and telling you to play Elden Ring because, like, duh, you know how much this game fucking rules. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about it at this point. And I'm sorry if you are, but like Elden Ring, like, there was no competition. This is my game of the year, obviously. Well, everybody, there you go. My favorite games that I played in 2022. And with that, I want to thank all you beautiful people for sticking with me through another year. It's been a blast. I really mean it when I say that I'm so thankful for my little community of people who enjoy watching my stupid little YouTube show. So with that said, we here at Idiot Ben Holdings want to wish everybody the happiest of New Year's, and I hope that 2023 treats you all like the absolute beauties that I know you all are. Arthur, drop the balloons. Well, it seems that I put helium in the balloons, so I'll have to take note of that for next year. Bye, everyone.